Good evening. My name is Ralph Provenzano, and I am Fort Central School District. I'm proud for many, many reasons. One of the things that I'm proud about are the partnerships that we engage in to make sure that we're giving our students and our community the very best. The Chemical Prevention Advisory Council, or CPAC, is one partnership that has been in our community for the past 29 years. 29 years we have had the opportunity to partner with many different stakeholders from Fairport and the Perrington community to make sure that we are reinforcing the ideas of healthy life choices and wellness. I'm also extremely grateful for those members of CPAC who are here tonight. If you are a CPAC member, please raise your hand or please stand up so we can acknowledge your contributions to our community. You won't find in many communities that every single month for the past 29 years we are talking about our children, our schools, and our families, and how we can provide the right environments. I would also like to take a moment to recognize our Board of Education. Our Board of Education realizes that this is the conversation. This is the discussion for our students and our families so they can be well equipped. And again, it's refreshing and energizing to work with a Board of Education that puts our students' health, wellness, and well-being at the forefront. So I would like to acknowledge our Board of Education. If Meredith Cluse, Principal of Brooks Hill, please stand up. Carolyn Shea, Principal of Northside, please. Rich Green, who is not here tonight, he is home ill. Our 3, 4, 5 principals are here, making it a priority and commitment to ensure that our students' health and wellness is at the forefront. Please acknowledge our principals. Who is our Director of Student Services. There's so many incredible things that are occurring on this very topic, in addition to the wonderful work that CPAC does. Deborah Miles, our Director of Student Services. Our teachers completely understand and are aware that this is the #1 thing that we need to accomplish. We understand the importance of reading, writing, and arithmetic. There's a high value in making sure that there's academic success in the classroom and beyond, but we know that this is the piece that we need to get right. It's the foundation of everything that we do. So I thank our teachers and staff members who are here tonight and who are in the classroom every single day. Please. Fairport is a community with soul. I was just talking to one of our students who are our asset leaders, and that's the one way that we could describe our community. There are so many incredible things that are occurring in our schools every single day. As a parent, I'm proud of this conversation. As a parent of a student who's a second grader at Dudley, I'm proud of the fact that we're trying to equip parents with the right resources to be successful. As a superintendent, I feel just as passionate. I feel it's our responsibility to make sure children's lives. There's a saying that speaks to the idea that you place in your children's minds. The ideas that you place in your child's minds will rule their world. It's our responsibility to make sure that the ideas are about being aware. The ideas are about ensuring wellness and the importance of making healthy life choices. Because as they move into the future, these are the skills that they will need to take with them as they prepare for their next steps. You improve by focusing inward, and that's what tonight is about. We're going to be sharing information with you. You're going to be hearing important vignettes, data, and you're going to hear from guest speakers who will be able to share important information with you as parents so you can have the resources to have have conversations, to have awareness on some of the things that are occurring in our children's lives. Knowledge is power, and we hope that you take this as a time to experience the wisdom and insights and the information that we're going to share with you, and then apply it at home. You are the single most important factor in your child's life. It's important that you have the ideas, the tools to have important conversations with them. And finally, I would like to acknowledge two very important people who have spearheaded this event tonight. I stated as I began this evening saying that CPAC has been in existence for 29 years. Deborah Tandoy has been the leader of CPAC through that time. She has the vision, she has the passion and the heart and love for our children and our community to make sure that they're getting the best every single day. And I would also like to recognize Jim Murphy, who was trying to decide if it was 17 or 18 years of being a part of CPAC. Again, 17, 18 years, 29 years. Right? People who are giving their time so our students and you as families and parents have everything they need to be successful. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jim Murphy and Deb Tandoy. Please enjoy the program.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you also all for coming this evening. A couple of logistical things before we really get started to the next phase. Please do note the emergency exits on both sides in the front of the auditorium as well as in the back at the ends of each one of the aisles. So please do make a note of that. In addition, each one of you on the way in received a folder with a wealth of information. Even though there's going to be a lot of information being presented out to each of you this evening throughout the course of the program, it's also important that you know that there are multiple opportunities for you to give us some feedback as well. So inside each one of the packets in the folders, you do have a note card as well as a pencil. Please make sure that as the evening goes on, if there are questions that you would like for us to answer during the panel session, and then certainly if we have too many questions, we'll make sure that we follow up after tonight's session as well. Please write those down on the card throughout the evening. There will be folks in the aisles who are collecting those throughout the evening as well. So again, please make sure that you give us some input in terms of the panel participation later. In addition, on the back of the agenda for this evening, there is an opportunity for you to give us some feedback for tonight's program. In the hallway and back on the table with the information, there is a basket. Please go ahead and drop those off on your way out at the end of the evening as well, so that we can consider that feedback in future events. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out tonight. It is really important that you're here. So we're beginning to hear it all the time on the news now, really sobering statistics. Every 4 minutes, someone in the U.S. dies from a drug or alcohol overdose. Over 20 million Americans are addicts, and 23 million are in recovery. 1 in 3 households is now personally impacted by addiction. And families of loss is the fastest growing group in America. So why is it so important that we look at this tonight? Why now? Well, because 90% of all addictions begin in adolescence. So that speaks to the importance that we really need to take a focus on this. So in the years that we've been doing this, oftentimes people will say, you need to tell parents younger and younger. And we always hear, oh, well, we'll talk about it with them when they get a little older, when it's their time. But you have such a key to prevention with kids this age group, 4th, 5th, 6th graders. It is really the time that they're still going to listen to you, that they want you active in your life, because for those of you that don't have older kids, it does change. And they get feelings of insecurities and doubts. And we know that they are seeing so much in the media. Even 6-year-olds know that alcohol is for adults. but it's between the ages of 9 to 13 where they begin to think that it's okay for everybody to have alcohol. So those are just a few things and why that we decided to put together a CPAC video so people understand the work that we do and who's involved and who you have to go to whenever you have any issues or questions about it. And I want to thank Tony Exton, who's worked really hard with us to get that video here for you. And it's just essential that at this age group you hear what the trends are and where it's all going with your kids. So enjoy the video and thank you.
We developed our formula for success. Each month, gathered, committed individuals from all segments of our community invested in working together to promote positive, productive, safe, and healthy lives for all. The Chemical Prevention Advisory Council, CPAC, was established in 1988 as a partnership promoting wellness and healthy lifestyles and students. Parents and teens play an active role in creating strategies to reduce high-risk behaviors. You recognize our work as establishing drug-free school zones, Red Ribbon Week activities, our parents who host Lose the Most, open houses and community meetings, Safe Homes, our parent networking program, and our 40 developmental asset focus for positive youth development. Our community has great kids. We owe it to all our youth to become informed about the pressures they face every day and to become equipped with strategies and tools to support them.
As superintendent of the Fairport Central School District, I am proud to say that our #1 priority is to put students' well-being at the forefront of all that we do. We want them to be successful academically, but more importantly, when they leave our schools, we want them to be life-ready. We want all of our students to be healthy, safe, and strong. Strong in mind, body, and spirit, so they can make healthy life choices as they live their lives. We do this by our partnerships. We have strong partnerships with organizations like the Chemical Prevention Advisory Committee. CPAC is an incredible example of how in Fairport we work together to make sure that our students have the very best in the classroom, in the hallways, outside of school, and throughout the community. We're proud of our partnership and we look forward to building upon it every year so our students can be the benefactors of this collaborative effort of working together.
Alcohol is the most commonly used drug among adolescents. In fact, alcohol kills more teens than all other illegal drugs combined.
More than 67% of young people who start drinking before the age of 15 will try an illicit drug. So, alcohol is a gateway drug to harder and more dangerous illegal substances.
We need all our students to come to school at their best, and we know that drugs and alcohol can impair that ability for them. The teen brain is much more vulnerable than the adult brain, and any combination with alcohol and drugs impacts their ability to learn. The CPAC committee and the community, we all try to work together to see the whole picture by informing parents and also supporting our students and helping them get through some of the tough decisions that they're going to be presented with.
Electronic cigarettes or e-cigs are drug delivery devices. They heat up liquid nicotine, a highly addictive drug, into a vapor which is then inhaled, known as vaping. E-cigarettes serve as a pathway to nicotine addiction for youth. Many students are getting addicted to them.
I actually know of some students who are buying them with prepaid credit cards and having them sent to their friend's house so that they won't get in trouble with their parents.
The result of what we're trying to do through CPAC and as a community is to give young people the tools that they need to make healthy, good choices. Hopefully we've done that through example and through valuing them so that they can value themselves.
As supervisor of the town of Perrington, I believe the health and safety of all of our citizens is important. Our dedication to CPAC helps us listen to our youth, our school administrators, the parents, and others who work to set a direction for our community. We build a culture, a Fairport family, and we strive for nothing but the best for everyone, no matter who lives here, especially our youth.
Our teen center is very valuable to our community because it provides many opportunities for students to succeed.
As a judge in the Fairport Perrington community, I'm concerned about legal rights and responsibilities. We all share the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but these rights come with responsibilities to ourselves and our community. Unfortunately, irresponsible behavior like teen drinking and drug abuse often cause loss and sometimes even the loss of life. Too often I see that poor choices and risk behaviors bring serious trouble for teens and their families. With the aid of CPAC, we're striving to encourage healthy lifestyles and reduce teen risk behaviors so that our kids can live their lives in the pursuit of happiness.
Marijuana is the most widely used and illegal drug among youth and is more potent than ever. Although sometimes perceived as a harmless and natural drug, the fact remains that today's marijuana is more addictive and stronger than ever.
Don't be fooled by legalization. Of the teens and young adults admitted to treatment facilities, marijuana is a primary diagnosis for admissions and drug dependence.
Because we care about our kids, emergency personnel come together
in Fairport. As part of that initiative, we've sponsored the Pharmaceutical drop-off program here at the police department, offering our residents the opportunity to drop off unused medicines and prescription drugs. Since 2010, we've received over 8 tons of pharmaceuticals, which would have otherwise been available to our youth.
Over the past few years, we have realized an increase of students who are experiencing depression and anxiety. And to address social needs. In Fairport, we are committed to supporting students in the area of mental health and wellness. We have implemented a number of programs and supports to help with building resiliency, regulating emotions, and accessing professional support. In doing so, we have partnered with Strong Behavioral Health to provide a mental health clinic within our district and consultation to staff to support. We're able to build upon these efforts by networking with the CPAC committee.
I love being on a committee that focuses collectively as a community on this effort every single month.
I think faith helps teens to know that they have hope throughout all the struggles that we face in today's society. I think faith helps teens to know that they are valued no matter what anyone else at school will tell them.
2/3 of teens say that losing their parents' respect is the #1 reason that they don't drink. Yes, parents, you have a significant impact on your children's decision making.
Honestly, parents just really need to talk to their kids about this stuff. It might be tough to talk about, but if you just have the conversation about drugs and alcohol, then they're going to be 50% less likely to use any of it.
Throughout my life, I've had many great adult role models that have kept me on the right path. Just make sure your kids have great role models that they can look up to.
Principals and staff have all been involved with the work of CPAC. Why?
Because we care about all kids.
But on the good side, while this data is alarming, we recognize that there are many youth who have decided to stay healthy and are committed to a great plan. And with the continued dedication to CPAC, we can add even more students to that group.
Parents, the best thing you can do to keep your child healthy is...
Students who reported having a drink of alcohol other than a few sips, excluding religious purposes. At the high school level, 929 of 1,793. At the middle school level, 127 of 1,301.
Students reported having 5 or more drinks in a row over the past 30 days. 340 at the high school level, 36 at the middle school level.
Students who reported using marijuana in their lifetime,
99.
Number of students reporting taking any drugs or pills to get high that was prescribed for someone else. For high schoolers, 141. For middle schoolers,
students reporting they have used hammer. High school 27, middle school 12.
Students reporting taking any form of OTC or over-the-counter drugs like cough medicine to get high. High school students 81, middle school 31. Students who have reported hurting themselves on purpose by cutting, burning, or bruising without the intention of committing suicide. High school 430, middle school 262. Students reporting they actually attempted suicide. High school 109, middle school 74, even though 240 middle school students and 320 high school students thought about it.
If a student attempted suicide, these students' attempts resulted in injury, poisoning, or overdose that had to be treated by a doctor
doctor or nurse. High school level, 39, middle school, 27.
Students who breathe the contents of aerosol spray cans, sniff computer keyboard cleaners, or inhale clean sprays to get high. High school, 110, middle school, 95.
Energy drinks have unsafe amounts of caffeine. Safe limits are 45 to 85 milligrams a day. Energy drinks range from 215 to 242 milligrams per can. High school, 282, middle school, 483.
Students who reported having ever had sexual intercourse. High school, 409, middle school, 52.
Students who have participated in oral sex given or received. High school, 538, middle school, 53.
Students who reported using their cell phone, computer, or other electronic device to send, /post, or receive nude or semi-nude pictures of self or someone else. At the high school, 1,003. At the middle school, 247.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Jordan O'Connor. I'm a junior at the high school, and drugs, alcohol, and suicide are topics that our society likes to avoid. However, these topics are eating away at our community. The impact of drugs and alcohol at the middle and high school level is all too real, and our society is oblivious to these impacts, and this is why we're here.
Fairport completed their 12th Youth Risk Behavior Survey. It is designed by the Center for Disease Control, and we take it in partnership with the Monroe County Health Department. The survey shows multiple different behaviors that can harm students, such as drugs and alcohol. We have longitudinal data since 1995. Years of results show trends in behavior which validates youth honesty in their answers. It is completely anonymous. We go into an area and the computers are all signed onto the survey, so we have no identifying information. We have shown you a sample of the current data and how things escalate as students get older. We chose 4 areas we're most concerned to talk to you about tonight.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm a senior.
Hi, my name's Lauren. I'm a junior.
Hi, my name's Jack. I'm a junior.
So what we want to talk to you tonight is about alcohol. Alcohol is the #1 drug among adolescents, and it is very easy to get your hands on. As kids move through school and as the school year progresses, parties become more and more prevalent. And I know it sounds and seems crazy to think about, but as students transition from elementary levels into middle school levels, they're already starting to talk about attending some of these parties and what it would be like at these parties.
Definitely from the transition from elementary school to middle school, children are more susceptible to experimenting with alcohol and other drugs. As parents, I would suggest to have open relationships with your kids. I know it helped me throughout my years in schooling, so that they don't get involved in all this later on in their life.
Again, because alcohol is the most common drug among adolescents, and it's very easy to get. It's everywhere in their world. They can find it anywhere. Just keep communicating with your kids.
Hi, I'm Carly Payne. I'm a junior. I'm Emma. I'm a sophomore. I'm Lindsay. I'm a sophomore. Though marijuana may not be as easy for kids to buy as alcohol is, it is still very important to talk about. So here are a few important facts.
These are some facts about marijuana. It's the most widely used illicit drug among youth and more potent than ever. The potency of it has increased from 1 to 2% in the 1960s to 15% or higher today, and it contains 400 known chemicals and at least 150 carcinogens.
National research demonstrates that illegal drug use among teens increases as the perception of its risk and social disapproval decreases. So 1 in 10 people who try marijuana will become addicted to it, but this statistic rises to 1 in 6 for adolescents.
Driving under the influence of marijuana is associated with a 92% increased risk of vehicular crashes, and marijuana users are significantly more likely than non-users to develop chronic mental health disorders such as schizophrenia, depression, and anxiety, or be suicidal. My first interaction with marijuana, I guess, would be when I was going to a summer jam concert in 5th grade. I know a lot of you guys have younger kids, so you wouldn't necessarily expect to be thinking about marijuana yet as like, oh, I'll worry about it when the time comes. I think it's sooner than a lot of you expect it to be. It's just if you have the conversation in advance with your kids, then it'll be a lot better when it eventually comes.
Hi, I'm Eden, and I am a sophomore.
I'm Mark, I'm a senior.
I'm Holly, I'm a junior.
And I'm Caitlin, ooh, that's loud, and I'm a senior. We're going to be talking to you a little bit about e-cigs. So e-cigs have become more and more popular, especially in Fairport. This is partly because e-cigs are marketed towards teens and young adults. We've collected many data and we compared it to the towns around us, and it showed that Fairport is the highest in the county for e-cig usage. E-cigs are no joke.
It has become scarce to hear people say, hey, do you want to hang out sometime, or let's go to the mall. The new question is, hey, we should smoke together sometime. I personally have been sitting next to a pair of people during a class who have asked this exact question. However, this can be changed if parents and adults stress the dangerous effects of e-cigs to their kids and help prevent usage.
For those of you who don't know about e-cigs are battery-operated drug delivery devices that resemble cigarettes. They are designed to deliver nicotine, flavor, and other chemicals by heating to a vapor. The user inhales the vapor and blows out the smoke. Many people are modifying the liquid to include marijuana. Kids are smoking marijuana in their e-cigs. Because the vapor is odorless, kids are getting high without detection from parents or teachers.
E-cigs are not approved by the FDA, who have warned that e-cigs contain ingredients that are known to be toxic to humans. The CDC stated that nicotine is a highly addictive drug. Teens who start with e-cigs may be condemned to struggle with lifelong addiction to nicotine and other conventional cigarettes. Currently, kids are becoming so addicted that they sometimes can't go 6 hours of school without smoking. Kids hide them in their sleeves, their socks, and their textbooks.
Hi, I'm Sam, I'm a sophomore.
Hi, I'm Taylor, I'm a junior.
I'm Alana, I'm a junior.
Hi, I'm Luna and I'm a sophomore. So last year, my freshman year of high school, there was going to be a pharmaceutical party, as known as a farm party, where in order to get in, you put a pill in a bowl and you take one out, you ingest it, and then carry on with your night. So this party was like a definite, it was going to happen, it was for New Year's, until some students who were concerned for their safety told their parents, and then this party was ended. And that's a great example of parent involvement and how that honestly, that could have saved lives. It's a very dangerous thing to participate in.
Prescription drugs are closely related to heroin. The chemicals that are in them are similar. In fact, 80% of people that are addicted to heroin start taking prescription drugs first. They get addicted to heroin so easily because of the similarities, and other prescription drugs can easily lead to heroin usage and addiction.
In 2015, close to 23,000 people died from a pain medication overdose. An alarming amount of these people were ages 15 to 24, which is high school to college level.
90 people die each day from an opioid overdose, which includes prescription, painkillers, and heroin.
So in Ohio, fentanyl, which is a really strong opioid, it's 30 to 50 times stronger than heroin. They're running out of room in morgues in Ohio because of how many fatal fentanyl overdoses there are. People are ingesting this because cocaine and heroin are laced in it. We're telling you this because of how big of an issue it is and because of how heroin overdoses are increasing.
So even though there are a lot of kids who are taking prescription drugs and doing heroin, which, by the way, prescription drugs, they get it from home medicine cabinets most of the time, there still are a lot of kids who are choosing to stay on the right path and not do any of this and live a healthy lifestyle.
Mental health is another topic prevalent throughout Fairport. As our data confirmed, we see a definite rise in the level of feelings of depression and anxiety in our youth. People who abuse alcohol and drugs do it to change the way they feel, to alter perceptions of reality in ways that make them feel pleasant, and to make them forget about their anxiety. Drug use may temporarily satisfy emotional or social needs, and students may use drugs to mask mental health issues. To gain a perspective on the mental health status of our youth, we encourage you to watch the YouTube video, If You Really Knew Me Fairport, where students were given anonymous cards that they filled out completing the statement, "If you really knew me," and they completed it with saying something that nobody knew about them. You also have a flyer in your parent toolkit that you got today inviting you to attend our Stressed Out presentation on November 15th at Martha Brown to learn more about mental health in our youth.
I would like to talk to you about 6th grade social interactions. 36th grade students had someone try to talk about sex with them when they did not want to. 22 received naked photos and 15 sent them. If somebody was met on social media, 36 people texted this person, 15 gave out their phone number, and 19 FaceTimed with this person. Not to mention that 18 met face-to-face. This is a scary statistic. 6th graders are meeting unknown strangers, and it can result in, I hate to say it, rape, sexual intercourse. It's awful things that are happening in our community that you guys need to be present in your students' lives and stop this from happening. You may be sitting there and be like, wow, this is really hard to handle, and complete shock. But don't worry, there's still hope. The statistics that we've shared is just a small percentage of our student body. And we just wanted to let you know that people have made the right choices, like us today. So we just ask that the kids that made the wrong decisions needed someone to love and care for them. So we ask tonight that you give your kids a positive role model to follow, and give them some love, and give them someone to make the right choices for. And don't be afraid to have the hard conversations about the hard topic.
Last week too, we screwed up. So. To lighten the mood, how about that?
Hello, my name is Liz Russell and I am the Substance Abuse Prevention Social Worker for the district. And tonight it's my pleasure to introduce you to Vicki Cappotelli. Vicki is our elementary school health educator. She's been with us for 13 years and she works at every elementary building teaching every student in grades K through 5. Tonight she's going to tell us about our health curriculum. Come on up, Vicki.
Good evening. Thank you very much for taking the time to come here tonight and to hear all that we have to offer regarding the data and what we do as a school. I feel really fortunate to work at Fairport. Fairport has this philosophy of a whole child, and they look for health and wellness along with the academic rigor. And it's a pretty special place to work for. I cherish your children tremendously. I've been with the district for 13 years. I've taught elementary for 9 years. And I've been fortunate enough to work in 7 of the 8 buildings. So I've had an opportunity to see a lot in the district, see a lot of even changes regarding current issues and trends. What I want to share with you tonight is a little bit about what we do as a health department here in Fairport regarding skills. These are the health education skills that we focus on through our K through 12 health curriculum, trying to develop these skills right from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade so that kids can be resilient, so that students can bounce back when things can get difficult and challenging, as we know they all do. I'm a parent, And, you know, I get it. We want to protect our children from everything, give them all of the opportunities in the world, but unfortunately, it's not possible. They are going to face adversities. They are going to face stress. So what is it that we can do as a department, and what is it that you can do as parents to help equip them with the tools they need to avoid these high-risk behaviors that we've been discussing this evening? As far as a breakdown of what we do at different grade levels, this is a snapshot of what I do in the lower primary. I travel around to all the different buildings. I go into each classroom, and our curriculum is built so that it's scaffold in nature. So it continues to build on itself year after year, reinforcing topics that we had done prior, making it developmentally appropriate, and then building on that. And we definitely do the wellness approach, the mental, the social, as well as personal safety. And then if we move on to the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade curriculum for health, I continue to see the 4th and 5th graders. I push into the classrooms. But when we get up to 6th grade, they start with their health courses. So they start with a 10-week health course. So they're getting a little bit more exposure and continuing to build on the skills that we've been working on since the lower primary. And this is what we do, you know, as a department. But if I were to, you know, offer you any sort of tips or advice on what we can do for our children, it would certainly start with resiliency. Resiliency is something that can be taught, can be learned, can even be improved upon. And there's a lot of things that we as parents can do for our kids to equip them with those tools so that they can, you know, handle situations that can be challenging as well as avoiding the high-risk behaviors like drug abuse, substance abuse. When we think about resilience, things that you can do to, you know, help build resilience within your child, within, you know, your family, starts a lot with relationships. When a student has at least one solid, trusting, supportive relationship in their life, that's going to certainly make it easier for communication to happen. And as, you know, some people have already said, communication is key. There's a lot of great things in your folders that offer up great conversation starters, things to be talking about at different levels or at different ages. And, you know, having that strong bond, that strong relationship is going to help with this communication because it is so important. It's also important to let them know to ask for help. You know, we want our students to be strong. We want our kids to be strong and brave. But being brave means asking for help when you need it. And knowing when to do that. And teaching our kids that is important. As is building their executive functioning. That's going to help them so that they're better equipped to manage stress, to problem solve. Ways to develop the executive, you know, functioning could be just simply having routines, having schedules, creative play, board games, things like that not only give you quality time together, but it's also going to help them with skills that are going to, you know, work out in the real world. Encourage a regular mindfulness practice. You might have seen up on my charts, that's something that has become a very big initiative within the district, is teaching kids as early as kindergarten. Mindful is about being in the moment, being present, so that when stressful situations occur, we don't necessarily react, we stop, think, and then decide. Building feelings of confidence and a sense of mastery is going to give our students, our kids, the confidence that they need to make those hard decisions or to deal with those hard peer situations that are knocking on our doorstep, basically. Teach them how to reframe, meaning how to kind of look at things differently. adversity exists. Life is not fair. But when we teach our kids how to look at things differently, it can help prepare them, rather than, you know, not what we've lost, but what do we have, that kind of thought process. And modeling too, that's another kind of common thread that I'm hearing this evening, is you as role models is so important. You know, we learn through imitation. So what we do as a parent, how we talk to them, you know, how well we bounce back, how well we handle stress, is really setting the path for how our kids are going to react. Encourage them to take risks, of course, safe, you know, considered risks, but facing fears, taking risks is going to help with their resiliency, so that they have the confidence, so that they know it's more important that they tried something difficult than necessarily the outcome. Because not everything is easy. You know, not everything is going to be handed to us like we want to do for our children, but that's not really giving them the skills they need to get through those tough times. Don't rush through the rescue. Meet them where they are. You know, you're going to see your kids suffer, to have trouble, to struggle. Having them develop coping techniques or strategies that help get them through it or figure it out on their own. I'm not saying, you know, let them, you know, be on their own completely. Find where they're at and then guide them. But let them try to figure it out as much as they can. Nurture that growth mindset of, you know, we can change and so can other people. And what is it that we need to change? And how can we go about doing that? Let them know that you trust their capacity to cope. You know, one of the biggest fears they have is disappointment, you know, letting the parents down, or not fulfilling, you know, their dreams or what they want for us. Let them know that you trust their ability to cope, and that they can get through it, and that will help to, you know, build their problem solving. And then, you know, along with the executive functioning, making time for creative play versus screen time, ultimately. It's consuming our lives in multiple ways, but having that creativity and that play does so many things regarding skill sets and helping them to be more resilient in real life situations. And then finally, listen. You know, sometimes we do all the talking because maybe they're not replying or answering as fast as we are. But asking questions is important, but also giving them time to talk, or time to inquire, or time to ask. The best thing you can do is to keep those lines of communication open so that we can teach our students, our kids, not to give up, to know how to come back after things get tough, to figure out how to get around an obstacle rather than turning away from it. Again, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. And again, I love your children and I appreciate the opportunity I have.
Hello again. It is my pleasure tonight to be introducing our next speaker. Craig Johnson has a very long and distinguished career, so I'm just going to touch on a couple of some of the highlights to introduce him tonight. Some of his certifications include, and these are listed on your agenda as well, he is a licensed mental health counselor, a New York State credentialed alcohol and substance abuse counselor, as well as a New York State OASIS education and training provider. With over 30 years of experience in the field, he also has numerous professional involvements, such as past president of the New York State Region 2 Consortium of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services, president of the Safer Monroe Area Reentry Team, and Vice President of Pathway Houses of Rochester, just to name a few. Craig also shares his knowledge and experience in positions such as Adjunct Professor at MCC, SUNY Brockport, SUNY Buffalo, and RIT, and also serves as a consultant to athletics at the University of Rochester. These are all in addition to his full-time position as Chief of Medical Operations and New Initiatives at Uther Doyle Memorial Institute. So without further delay, please help me in welcoming Craig Johnson.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here tonight. And thank you so much for coming out and hearing some information and being part of the discussion on certainly these very important topics. I've had the occasion quite a bit recently because there's been a lot of concern about substance abuse and particularly opiates. It was just a week ago that the President talked about us being in an opiate and drug emergency. Right? We've heard the term, crisis and epidemic and opiate and drug tragedies and so on, and now we're at the level of an emergency in our country, locally, our state, and our country and beyond. The upshot of which is that there seems to be this wave of opiate use. I think that most of us probably are touched, if not very closely, certainly hearing about people or quite often unsuspecting neighbors or cousins or what have you that, oh, we had this kid and just overdosed or just went into rehab or what have you. We think, really? I had no idea. Well, to the extent that today it looks like the levels of people dying from drugs and opiates are becoming, if they've not crossed over, into the #1 cause of death for people under the age of 50. Now think about that a little bit. I mean, it's not just young people. When we think about the opiate epidemic, a lot of times we think about sort of 20-something, and there is a bubble in that age group, but there are also teenagers, and there are also people older than that. In fact, having seen way too many rosters of people who have passed from overdoses on opiates, and opiate combinations, as you may have heard about, heroin today is really not heroin any more than typically marijuana is really not marijuana, but instead typically consists of anywhere up to 10 or 12 different additives, including fentanyl, the one that tops the list in a lot of the street heroin these days, and has been mentioned by the students is many fold stronger than heroin. But having seen way too many rosters of people and seeing the ages 25, 19, 27, 32, 24, 44, 38, 62, America's kids don't have a drug problem. America has a drug problem. And there are many different pathways into this, which is part of the challenge of this. And I think we heard, certainly from the presentation that Vicki just did, thank you so much, Vicki, and ways that we can try to prevent. And we do know that there are some students for whom we can prevent apparent behavior, including substance abuse and addictive issues and so on. Then there are others for whom we kind of can't seem to do very well because of a series of risk factors and stresses and changes and other kinds of things. There's a subset of young people that are probably going to have some significant problems with substances no matter what we do. And there certainly is a group of young people who are never going to have a problem with alcohol or other drugs, kind of no matter what we do. But then there's this group of students who could sort of be influenced one way or another, and that's quite often the target of the kind of prevention efforts that Vicki spoke to, and some of the students even touched on a bit. But it's very interesting because we've learned a lot recently with this opiate epidemic. There's sort of the traditional pathway into addictions, and that's where you often have considerations like lack of coping skills or other kinds of conditions that somebody might have, and they may begin to self-medicate, and then that becomes a pattern, and eventually sort of takes on a life of its own, if you will, and somebody crosses over into this addictive process. That's still very common. And there again, you might see that, sort of that progression, cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, club drugs, heroin. You might see that kind of process. But we have a new one today, which is what made this so complicated and challenging with the opiates. And they aren't always the young people that are the partiers, or the young folks, or even the young adults who have gone down that pathway of kind of using certain drugs and then more drugs and this kind of thing to cope and progressed into and through addiction. But instead we're seeing the athlete, the extreme snowboarder that's off in high school at a private school. And he loves snowboarding. It's his peers, it's his life, it's his passion, and he blows out his knee. And he's in 11th grade, and now he's devastated. He's depressed. His whole social life is up in the air because people are going off to the slopes and having fun, and his whole identity is threatened, and he can't do the things he loves to do, the things that he developed as relatively healthy ways of dealing with stresses in life and so on. And so he's highly distraught, and then he perhaps has a provider who is prescribing pain medications. And one of the elusive things about the opiates is within 10 to 12 days, a person can become tissue dependent. What does that mean? That means that when you don't have it, you are starting to feel sick, uncomfortable, crave, seek. So, this young man who's quite devastated by this event in his life takes these medications for a couple weeks, and sometimes we do see that over the last couple decades there's quite this pattern in the medical field that of overprescribing. Not all physicians by any means, but it was sort of normative for some period of time, and so he's taking these opiates for 2 or 3 weeks, and then he tries to stop, and it becomes very difficult. And being kind of euphoric on this medication is something that feels pretty good compared to the baseline depression that I have because of the loss of something so important to me in my life. So you run that out another week or two, and then you find that the second month of his 30-day supply in 4 days. Now he's in a heap of trouble, because he's going to be in a lot of pain, and he's going to experience some withdrawal. So his friend, quote unquote, who has some opiates, starts to get him some, and then he starts to purchase some, and oops, that starts to become fairly expensive. And heroin's a whole lot cheaper. If you use it IV, it has much more of a bang, much more of an effect, and you can do that multiple times a day, and not spend quite as much money. So our young man is now addicted to IV use of heroin, and for those of you familiar with the addictive process, typically a whole lot of, I guess what we could call sketchiness comes along with that. So there's lying, there's stealing, there's deceit, there's all these kinds of things, because somebody who's even short of the addiction, somebody who's using substances will certainly have a lot of time and a lot of focus that they spend to try to not have you catch them, right, or see what's going on. And so that's where a lot of their energy is directed, is to denying and to covering up. So that's just another pathway that we see that's much too common these days, and certainly doesn't fit that stereotype of the troubled student or what have you. The other side of this that I want to take just a moment to speak to is recovery. It was mentioned that there are millions of people in recovery. I'm one of those people that is in long-term recovery. There are millions of us who no longer use any mood-altering substances and work a program of adjusting to life and dealing with things in different ways, and of hope and of support and of faith and of inspiration. And my kid's in recovery too. He was brought up in a suburb right next door here, and he's in his young 20s, and he has lost 12 of his peers to addictions. But recovery is very much possible, and I work in an outpatient center, and we're expanding some of our services because, sadly, the need today is profound. But fortunately, there is the possibility of treatment, of recovery, of people turning their lives around. And what I guess my challenge to you would be maybe twofold. And one is to first, the challenge to examine some of your own behaviors. You know, we're talking about talking with your kids and being open and these kinds of things. But the challenge to maybe take a bit of a critical look at your own behaviors and decide for yourself, you know, does that mean that you don't go home after work and have a couple drinks? Maybe. Does that mean that you are very conscious about the behavior that your 4th, 5th, or 6th grader is observing in terms of your alcohol use or your marijuana use? We have a whole lot of child-raising age parents that are smoking weed these days. A whole lot of them. So does that mean you quit marijuana? Maybe. Does that mean that you go home and look through your cabinets or your mother-in-law's cabinet to see if there are maybe 50 or 60 Vicodins sitting around in a bottle that you can perhaps take and turn into the Fairport Police? Maybe. So that's the first challenge. Second challenge is a little bit broader than that, and that has to do with our community. What can you do to make Fairport a community where it is no longer comfortable to be a substance abuser? At any age. You know, we talk about an alcoholic kind of needs to hit bottom. Well, we know that there are things we can do to sort of raise that bottom, if you will, in some ways. What can we do as a community to kind of raise the bottom in Fairport so that it's not okay to come into 10th grade class and kind of be stoned and sit in the back of class? What can we do that it's not okay to be standing out in the street and smoking marijuana? Have you noticed that's starting to happen a whole lot more these days? What can we do to make it not okay for parents to have parties and go, well, gee, at least they're drinking at home? What can you do in your community to make Fairport a place where the bottom is raised, if you will, okay? There's a high level of consciousness, and where it is normative for people to be healthy, drug-free, and well? What can you do to promote that movement in your community and in our community? Thank you so much.
We're going to invite our panelists to come up. And that's probably going to take a minute. While they're doing that, if you have questions, please write them on your index card and hold them up, and our CPAC volunteers will collect them and bring them up to us. And if your question is directed to someone, let us know that, but don't worry, we'll figure it out too. We have a big panel. So what we're going to do once they get situated is I'm going to start at the far end and have them just tell us their name and where they work, or if they're a student, what grade they're in. So, thank you, Mrs. Shea. I think you're at the end. So if you can start the line.
Sure, I'm happy to. My name is Carolyn Shea. I'm the principal of Northside School. As you know, Northside is an intermediate building with grades 3, 4, 5.
Dave Young, principal of Arthur Brown, grades 6, 7, 8.
Carly Payne, 11th grade, gymnastics teacher at the Little Gym.
Jordan O'Connor, I'm a junior at Fairport High School, cashier, parents are white.
Sam Farina, the Village of Fairport Police Chief.
Caitlin Muncie, you can find me selling clothes at JCPenney's.
Emma Maxshara, I'm a senior at the high school. You can find me at the rec center.
Good evening, I'm Deb Miles, I'm the Director of Student Services in Fairport.
Hi, I'm Margaret Osler. I'm a parent of 2 daughters, and I'm also a high school youth minister at Church of the Resurrection.
Hi, I'm Yuna. I'm a sophomore, and I babysit weekly.
Good evening, Deborah Tandoy again, and aside from CPAC, I run the Developmental Asset Initiative for the Fairport Parenting Community.
Craig Johnson from Huther Doyle.
Vicki Cappotelli, health teacher in Dudley, Northside, Brooks Hill, and JA.
Thank you. So one of the questions we get a lot is, because we heard all this great information, a lot of concerning information, what are we doing both in our schools and in our community to support good decision making? So maybe I'll start with you, Mrs. Miles, and you can tell us a little bit about what we're doing in our schools.
Sure, thank you. So just to give you a sense of how many people we have pushing behind these initiatives, we have 13 school psychologists, we have 13 school counselors at the secondary level, 2 behavior specialists who focus solely on behavior intervention in the classroom and the school setting, 10 social workers, one of which is Liz, who focuses on the prevention for drug and alcohol abuse. We also, unique to New York State, have a partnership with Strong Behavioral Health through the University of Rochester, who works with our staff to collaborate on our students who are having challenges social emotionally in our buildings that are preventing them from being successfully academically or from even being present in their classrooms. And then they offer a great deal of professional development to our staff on really important topics to support students around social emotional development, resiliency, emotional regulation. With that makes it unique is that we have in this particular building, but available to all Fairport families, a Office of Mental Health licensed clinic. So any Fairport family who needed to reach out for mental health services could receive that here in district and not have to drive into the city or to Henrietta to receive those supports. And it's because there is such a great deal of referrals out there that our community is faced with. This partnership has allowed our Fairport families to get this support more readily. So we're pretty excited about that. Vicki talked a lot about our mental health initiatives. We do a lot of preventative work, but we do a lot of responsive work as well. And so our positive behavior intervention support program is going K-12 right now. We're in our 3rd year of rollout with that. And the mindfulness piece and calming zones, calming rooms are coming to our elementary buildings. So we have a lot going on, and it's all in an effort to support your children, teach resiliency, teach emotional regulation, and help them be able to process the things that they go through in life.
Thank you. Margaret, would you share some of the ideas you might have for supports we have in our community?
Sure. So currently I work with high school kids. Most of them are from Fairport, but we have some from other towns too. And so I have the opportunity to see these kids that have been brought up and nurtured by their churches, have grown in their faith formation and have gotten involved with serving the community in a variety of ways. And I see tremendous benefits in that. Just all of the things that we're talking about that we want for our kids, the resilience, the understanding their identity, being able to go inward and see who they truly are above and beyond what their grades are or what sport they play or what instrument they play. They come to, when they spend time with their peers in their churches, they're valued and loved for who they are inside, no matter what they do or what they show to the world on the outside. So I would really encourage you, although I am with high school kids, I would encourage you now to keep your kids involved in their faith formation, no matter what your denomination is. I just feel that it's so important, and I know it can get set aside because we're so busy with academics and with sports and dance and all those things, and it's very easy to let that go. But it's just another place for your kids to be loved and to be cherished and to be nurtured and for them to discover their really, really true identity. And I just feel that that is a huge piece that a lot of kids are missing today. And I strongly encourage you to look out in the community. There are many, many, many churches, many great programs, and get your kids involved, serving others and loving themselves.
Thank you. So a lot of these questions are for the students. Same thing happened last week. So, and a lot of people are saying kudos to you, that you did a great job. We agree. So, first of all, where would a student, say a 6th grader or any middle school student, get drugs?
Specific to middle school?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I think a lot of what we focus on, especially in the middle school years and even up through high school, is the older siblings. A lot of you probably have older children. Children? Okay. Children, and that's where it starts. They're older and they see their older siblings going to parties, or they hear them talking on the phone like, hey, this party was so awesome this weekend and stuff like that. And that's where I think a lot of these kids get the ideas and where it starts, is their older siblings and what they hear around them.
Also, surprisingly enough, I know a lot of kids, at least when I was in 6th grade, vape-wise, they got it from their parents. Either their parents vape and they don't think it's that big of a deal, like, oh, it's not actually smoking. So when I was in 6th grade, I just knew a lot of kids that got it from you guys.
Okay, thank you. Earlier in the presentation, one of the students talked about farm party, and that was, a lot of people are saying, wow, that's really shocking. So could we talk a little bit more about this, and maybe our students, or maybe Craig, if you could talk.
I remember I was like standing in the lunch line, and then the person who was going to have it was like, hey, you want to come? Like, it's going to be great. And I was like, sure, I'd love to. And then she told me, like, no, not like, she didn't tell me yet, sorry, disclaimer. And then she like told me what was like, about like the pills and things, and I was kind of like, blatantly told her, I was like, that's really stupid. It's not safe. So basically, she told me that in order to get in, I would need to bring a pill, put it into a bowl, and then we'd all like stand in a circle and pass the bowl around, and you take a pill and you ingest it, and then later these would be mixed with alcohol, which you're not supposed to mix pills with alcohol. That's extremely dangerous. So like even standing there, like I was so nervous, and like a lot of people were invited, and if this had gone through, that could be extremely dangerous. And this is my freshman year, so.
Yes, just as many people have said, the availability, the access a lot of times comes through family and medicine cabinets and so on when we're talking about pills, but it's also important to recognize the economy of drugs. We don't talk about that as much. Marijuana is the #1 cash crop in this country, long before legalization, if that was the case. That's a lot of money. In many cases, it's a simple function of supply and demand. There are distribution centers. There are people who not only get prescription medications from their parents' cabinets or their older brothers and sisters, but where through various markets, these kind of substances are available in quantity and then get distributed. And there are drug sellers, drug dealers. Very much in our suburban communities, you're going to find handfuls of kids at the high school level and college-age kids who are the kingpins, if you will, within our suburban communities, who distribute to people and younger students a lot of times with lesser and lesser quantities as you kind of go down the chain. But there's a whole lot of money tied up in the drug business because there's a whole lot of demand for people who want these various substances. In the case of something like a farm party, there's that's especially scary. It's a non-discretionary abuse, and you never know how people are going to react. But that's a lot of what motivates it. This is big money stuff.
We have a question that principals might want to talk about the transition from elementary to middle school, and what are some of the things parents can expect to be different in that change between 5th and 6th grade?
Many of you have been room parents in your elementary classroom, probably know most of the kids in that classroom, but regardless of whether they go to Mark or a John parent, all 3 of our 5th grade classrooms will feed into those middle schools. So your kids are going to come home with new names, and my suggestion would be to keep track of those names and whenever possible, get to meet the parents of those names. I think one of the main formulas of success are the kids that can maintain a stable relationship with friends over time, and the bonus would be to have you know those parents as well. I've been in this community my whole life, and it's an outstanding community, but there's a wide range of variability in terms of parenting styles, from wanting to watch their child very, very close to really giving them free rein to do what they want. And I think a lot of it depends on just keeping that open relationship with your child, because they're going to start meeting new kids. Most times it's 5th, 6th grade, but you start hearing names of 7th and 8th graders. Just keep your ears open, and always volunteer to run the carpool. I mean, when your kids are going to places, I was always one of the first ones to say I'm going to take my kids wherever they need to go. Because it's amazing how dumb they think they are when they're in the back talking to their friends about everything, and we're on driving. So keep your ears open, and I think one of the persons said earlier, listen to your kids. Please listen to your kids. They've got a lot to say.
I have a question here about social media, and I feel like we could have a whole panel, and I think we have had a whole panel about social media, but for the students on the panel, how much do you think social media affects risky behavior, drinking, vaping, drugs, sex, by making it seem safe and supported by others who are readily sharing that behavior?
A lot. Social media is like a big part also, because now there's these new things on Instagram. They're called Finstas, fake Instagram. And basically, it's just where kids, they make these accounts private from their parents and like anybody they don't want seeing it. And when you go on these Finstas, most of them is solely just drugs and them smoking with their friends and just stuff they don't want their parents to see. So I think that really influences a lot of kids, like, oh, I want a cool looking Finsta. So
yeah, also like as a younger kid, you do have the ability to follow anybody you want to. So as like a 6th grader, you could be following that like 11th grader that made the wrong decision. So they, through Instagram, they see that and they kind of want to idolize the older people. So they see that they've made the decision, so they feel that that's the right decision. So I'm not saying like screen who people follow, because I want you to give your kids like, I want you to respect your kids' privacy, but just like make sure that they choose the right people to follow so they don't have bad influences on their stream.
So I'm going to be a student, not really, but I'm going to come in as the adult and say, I want you to invade their privacy. Because this is really critical. This is really critical. And this is critical in the transition to middle school as well. So because they've graduated 5th grade and going on to middle school does not, if you haven't already done this, mean they need a cell phone. So a lot of what happens through technology today, the relationships that they're building, the peers they see in their school day, that they're maybe not even face-to-face interacting with, but then they're interacting with them through technology during the day or outside of school. It really is a true symptom of what's happening to how our kids learn social skills and deal with conflict and deal with emotions and build relationships. And so in some way, it really is breaking down how well they do that, because they're doing it all through technology and not face-to-face conversation, not reading appropriate emotions, and sending the right signals. And you heard some pretty significant statistics about sharing pictures of themselves and sexting and things like that. That is a true issue for kids, and it doesn't stop with that one picture. It doesn't go away after that. After they've made that impulsive, very critical choice, they then deal with the fallout that comes with that for many days, weeks, months afterwards. It then leads to some pretty significant depression and reactions from your children. So that is a place to very much be a parent, and don't be afraid to do that. I'm going to do one more plug for you. Go mark your calendar, because on January 9th, we are bringing back the Screenagers film. If you did not see it the first time last April, it is coming back January 9th, and it very much tells you how addicting. This is another form of addiction. You all know it because you have them, and you've probably been on them throughout the evening. It is another form of how using technology impacts your brain development, especially as a young developing adolescent, and what that does. And there are actually now rehab facilities trying to wean kids and adolescents off of gaming so that they can function. It has the same biological and chemical impact that the device has. So that's my plug. Sorry, guys.
My parents personally, they check my social media and my phone every once in a while, and honestly, I respect that. I know that they're trying to make sure that I am safe and I'm making good choices, and I think it's actually really important that they do that, because they're just making sure I'm safe and I'm making good choices, and then, so I like that they do that personally.
And there's no expectation of privacy, and you don't need a search warrant, so please do that.
And I wanted to just reiterate to make sure you heard, you were referencing a Finsta.
Yeah.
Tell us real slowly what that is.
A Finsta is, okay, so a Finsta, regular Instagram is just an Insta or a Rinsta, a real Instagram, whereas a Finsta is a fake Instagram. So it's usually some like weird name that doesn't even sound like your child's name. And it's just where only their close friends can follow, they block everybody else off, and they're super hard to find. And it's just where they post everything they don't want you to see. Pictures of them vaping and a lot of other stuff that's usually not very good.
Thank you.
I do want to say though that some of them aren't. Like some of them, like a lot of them are like jokes and things like that. So just like to throw that in.
Don't investigate carefully. Don't jump to conclusions.
Yeah,
but ask.
if you find that your child has a Finsta, I wouldn't immediately jump to the conclusion, oh my goodness, my kids are making bad choices. Because a lot of them are like jokes. Do you know
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure we're clear on that. Chief, a lot of people are wondering about some of the trends you've been seeing in the village. And what happens when you go to a call where there's a young person, and how is that handled if someone's under the influence?
Well, thank everybody for being here again. One thing I do want to share before I answer that question is that our police department is very much a partner in this community with the school district. I speak to the superintendent and his administration as well as the school principals almost on a daily basis. And we do that not as a member of a police department, but more as a member of somebody invested in this community to ensure your children are safe, secure, and their welfare is extremely important to us, as well as the school, and we want to ensure the development of your children from an educational standpoint. So that's our position. Some of the trends that we're seeing are very alarming. As brought out by some of our speakers, the opioid crisis is dramatic and is ever increasing to a point that even here in Monroe County, they did have to add a outdoor morgue refrigerator type situation to accommodate the growing number of folks that are dying from this epidemic. In addition to that, what we're seeing too from a mental health standpoint is 13 through 19 age group is spiking as far as mental health issues, suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts, that type of thing, which is very, very alarming to us. So we actually moved to a clinician being out in the field from the Office of Mental Health to help us with any type of situation that comes about that people in the community need additional mental health services. We have a way to plug people into that immediately through that process. It becomes such a prevalent problem. And the last thing that we're seeing from a DWI standpoint is alcohol used to be the only thing that we would stop and arrest people for driving while intoxicated. Now we're seeing much more than ever marijuana and other drugs as being the intoxicating substance for people out there driving. So those are some of the things that we're seeing from a law enforcement standpoint. And when we're dealing with the youth out there, we do take a more of a restorative justice position where we try to find other options other than introducing them into the criminal justice system. So that's kind of our push from the Fairport Police Department of trying to assist your youth out there being productive and quality citizens down the road. After all, they're going to have to take care of me when I get old, so I have to personally be invested in this, right?
One person wants to know how we use the youth at risk survey data to maybe inform our curriculum, and if we change our curriculum based on the every other year data we receive.
and analyze the data together, and then use the data to inform our health curriculum. And we do that naturally depending on current trends and issues, but specifically this year we were given time, several days to sit down, analyze the data, and figure out how we're going to incorporate these trends, these issues in our curriculum. And it did influence the curriculum, right from mine in elementary school all the way up to the high school. There was some minor adjustments and tweaks made so that we know that we're using this data to help any issues that arise. So it certainly affects the health curriculum in the district.
Will schools ever be cell phone free? Any thoughts? And Mr. Dunn, this is kind of a shout out to middle schools especially. So any thoughts on could we ever have cell phone free schools?
I've got a certain bias that if schools aren't part of the institution that's teaching responsible cell phone usage, I'm afraid some kids aren't going to get it. So our students are not allowed to bring their cell phones into the classroom with them unless the teacher encourages them to do so because of an activity they're using online with their phones. They are allowed to have them at Martha Brown and in the lunchrooms. I encourage any parent to come in that they think they're just all on their phones. Our lunchrooms are pretty random. We've got TVs in there. The kids will either watch the TV background, maybe they'll play a game on their phone, and still continue to engage in conversations. So I honestly feel that they can and should be used in a positive way. And I think a lot of times, just like our data tonight, we focused on a lot of the things that the poor choices kids are making. Well, keep in mind that at our middle schools, we've got the majority of our kids making good decisions. And I just would like to leave you with one comment. As your kids move through middle school with them. They're at the second most critical period in their development, socially and physically. The only other critical period is 9 months. And think about how often you hug your 9-month-old child, and how many times you kissed them and told them you love them. Middle school, second most critical. They need it even more. So stay connected with your life, with their lives. Move through middle school, move through high school with them. There's a point that at some point, that the children, the middle school kids, they'll replace family structures with friend structures if they're allowed to. And you can talk to any one of my 3 kids, we never gave in on the family stuff. There was always going to be a time for friends and a time for family. And I do know sometimes it's a constant struggle, but do not let them away from you for that middle school period. They need the boundaries, they need the love, they need your attention more than ever. So I would encourage you, and the other thing is, we had 8 kids and 8 parents in our schools today for Science Action. There are ways at both middle schools to be involved in your science education. Take advantage of those opportunities as well.
Thank you. I have a stack of excellent questions that we're not going to have time to get to, but we are going to answer them and post them on our CPAC website. So thank you to the panel. I'll give you a round of applause.
Give yourselves a round of applause, please. Thank you very much. I would like to say that intentionality matters. The decisions that you do, the simple things that you do can make an incredible difference in your household, how it impacts our schools. I'm grateful for all the great presentations, our students, Vicki Cappotelli, and of course, Craig Johnson, excuse me, Craig, thank you. What a great message that all of them had. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful, safe evening.